Students frequently ask me or state, I just don't know where to begin. Well, hopefully seeing an example has given you an idea of what to do. You're faced with a problem. You should first of all analyze what the math formulas are. What do I need to do to come up with the right answer? Put it in Excel, perhaps draw a flowchart so you can test out your algorithm. And then draw the form. Decide what your inputs are going to be, what your output or outputs are going to be. Surprisingly enough, this much can actually take 3/4 of the time it takes to do the program. In later problems, this is not so, because you will get better at drawing these forms and then we'll be adding on more complicated code. But if you come and ask for help and you've already made a start, have attempted some code and it's turned out badly, then the instructor says, okay, they've made an effort, we can help them. Once you get started with some of these, you could take problems that are on page 9 of the Logic or Programming Structures handout. You could work through the process quickly. You don't have to do a fancy Excel like for when you're turning it in for an assignment. Same with the flowchart. You don't have to save all of the different pieces, but you could go through the process just to see if you can do it. In this session, we're going to generate what's called code stubs, S-T-U-B-S. Before we do that, however, let's think about how this program is going to work. The first thing that's going to happen is somebody will start up the program. The next thing is presumably they will enter numbers for base and height, then click on the Calculate button, click on the Clear button if they'd like to enter a new problem, and click on Exit when they're done. Each one of these things, starting up the form, bringing it into memory, entering data in the text boxes, clicking on the keys, these are all called events. Now, the book has you going through more than we actually require for the programming problems. If you are interested in learning Visual Basic as a language, then you should concentrate on all the little extras that the book teaches you. You should go ahead and experiment with what they have and other things that you'd like to follow up on your own. Before we go on, let's hide the toolbox. We don't need it any longer. And to do that, we'll first of all click on the push pin. And that takes or invokes the auto hide feature of the toolbox. Now, to generate the code stubs, the easiest way is simply to double-click on the different buttons. The book has you doing it a different way, and I suppose there might be some value in learning how to do this. There may be cases where you have an event where you cannot generate the code stubs simply by double-clicking. But for most of our programming, simply double-clicking on the button will do the job. And we get into the text editor typing area. Whew. Take a good look at how this is constructed. Notice the first line, public class, and then the name of the form. Its corresponding one that's indented at the same level is end class. You have to have those two lines or else your program can't be. The code that we generated by double-clicking the Calc button starts with the word private sub and ends with the word end sub. Our code is going to be in between those two. Now, if I come over and narrow down the Solution Explorer a little, you can see that there's some code at the end here. We're not going to worry about that right now, but be sure you read this as you program. What this says is we have the click event on the other side of the word handles there. I'll slide over so you can see it. We have the click event associated with the object btn calc, and this routine will handle that event. Okay, we're not going to worry about code in this segment for this one. How to get back to my form? Several different ways. One is to come over here to the Solution Explorer, click in that window, and normally this would be a little wider there. The Form Designer, the View Designer tool, click on that and that takes you back to the form. We'll take a look at some other ways too. Next, I'm going to double-click the Exit button. And you'll see that it generated some code after the other one. You'll notice that there's a blank line in between them. I don't know whether that was accidental. I think it puts it in. Leave those in. When you're printing these things off, you need a little bit of white space to set off the various routines. Another way to get back to your form is to go up to the tabs and click on the one that says form1.vbdesign*, and that takes you back to your form. Finally, we'll do the third button, Clear, and you'll notice that it put these in the order that I clicked them. This is not necessarily the best order. In fact, I did this on purpose so I could show you how you should straighten it out. The least important bit of code, or the least significant, most trivial, is the exit code. It's going to be one line, so it should not be high up in the order. When you look at a program, you want the most important routine first, the one that's going to require the most work and the most looking at. So you may need to move your code around to accomplish this. Now, the easiest way to do this is to come to the end sub, in fact, right after the B, and highlight backwards. I'm going to cut and paste that. So I'm going to do Control X, come up in front of the private sub for the exit, and paste it. And you'll notice I was in the wrong spot. Hopefully you're seeing all the crazy wavy blue lines. A couple of enters would fix that. I did not expect that to happen, but hey, it does all the time. So at the end here, it looks like I've got an extra blank line. Clean it up a little bit. Don't have an excessive number of blank lines. We can now put in the code for closing the form. Visual Basic has something called IntelliSense, and they work you through it in the chapters, but it might be easier to see an example. I can have it partially complete things for me if I start typing exactly right. And the secret is to type the word me, M-E, M-E, period. When you do that, it brings up a drop-down list. You may cursor through it, or if you type well, you can start typing the item. So the item I want to do is close. And if I type a C, I get down to the C area. An L, I get down to client something rectangle, I guess. And then O for close. Now, we didn't gain much here. We only got the S and the E for us, and we're going to have to do a tab to get that. So we really only gained one keystroke. But when you have the items that are very long and you would be error prone to type them, this is great. So I'm going to hit tab, up arrow, and it generated the code. Let's go test this. You do not have to go back to the form before you test. You can actually just click on Start Debugging, the Go button. It compiles the program and it brings it up. Now, we don't have anything else programmed. The only thing I can test is my exit. So I'll click on that. When I click on exit, it should close the form. Done. So I know that my exit code works. Doing some of this busy work at the beginning can gain you a lot of time. Let's come up to the top, and we're going to put in some code here to begin with. That will be in the next segment so that you get an idea of what kind of code to put in. So come back in a minute.